Hello, everyone. Alchemist here. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Today, I want to share with you something personal. My journey, which led me to being here, to becoming Alchemist, and to doing what I'm doing and sharing this kind of content and readings with you. And the universe kept telling me to share this with you at this moment. It's not something that I have disclosed before, but I will share it for the first time here with you. I have done other videos where I talked about my early journey to spiritual awakening and how I became Alchemist and how I started connecting to spirit and the kind of paranormal experiences that happened to me when I was younger. I've shared that in previous videos. You can go check them out. But in this video, I'm going to talk about certain aspects or details that I have never disclosed before. Maybe it can help you along your journey as well. So in order to make sense of everything, let's go back in time to the time when I was very, very young. The only memories I have about my childhood is around when I was 7 years old. Prior to that, I have very faded memories of my childhood or anything that have happened to me from since I was born until 7 years old. And starting from 7 years old, I have memories. I have some memories of my life. But before 7, I don't. I have very faded memories, and some of them are either me playing with my favorite toys by myself or me watching this fantasy movie. And that fantasy movie, it marked me so much, and it had like monsters and like creatures and aliens, and it was fascinating to me back then. I think maybe I was 5 years old or 6 years old when I watched it. I don't even remember what year. And a couple of years ago, I saw a scene from that movie somewhere online. I don't remember where. And I remembered it, especially the scene where the main character had this weapon, which is a star. It's a star, it's a 5-pointed star. And he throws that star and it goes like a boomerang, it goes like a weapon, and then it comes back. I don't even remember the name of the movie, even though I watched it a couple of years ago. When I saw that scene, I had goosebumps all over, and I remember that movie was playing and we were watching it with my cousins. It was a bunch of us watching the movie, but that movie marked me so much. I was fascinated by it. So a couple of years ago, and I'm in my 40s, I went on and watched the movie right away. It's a very cheesy movie, but I watched all of it. And I don't remember the title, so I'm gonna leave it here on the screen. So except from these couple memories about my childhood, that's it. I really don't know what was happening in my childhood. It's completely dark. Dark as in like blank, as in like I just don't know much until I was 7 years old. Another thing that I hear from family members is that when I was young, I used to be a little bit scared of being alone or being in the dark. But you're probably gonna say, who isn't when they're little kids? It's true, but compared to my siblings were not. When I asked my mother, she told me that it especially was me. I was scared of the darkness and not my siblings. My siblings were quite different. So I'm not sure what I saw when I was young, what was going on. And I know that in psychology, when something happens when you're young and it's very scary, or your mind can't accept it and you try to shut it down, so your memory shuts down that period of your life. And I feel like that's exactly what happened to me. That's why I just remember starting from 7 years old, when kids remember their past lives. When kids are connected to the spirit realm, they can see spirit, they can see ghosts, they can see entities around them. And when they're telling you, hey, my friend told me this and this yesterday, and that friend is either a doll or something imaginary, you think they're making it up, but it's actually real. It's probably a spirit speaking to them, or that doll that's speaking to them is inhabited with a spirit. So they're telling you the truth. They're not making things up. So between 0 and 7 years old is very important. When your kids tell you things, first of all, they don't lie, and they don't know how to lie around that age. So when they're telling you things, try to listen to them. They're telling you the truth. They're telling you what they're seeing. They're telling you what they're feeling. They're not making things up. Making things up is something that the adults do. So this is just a little reminder. So I'm not sure what happened between that period of my life, and it was probably something scary. It's probably seeing spirits, probably something paranormal, and that's why I chose not to remember it, because it was probably super scary. But when I think back about my first encounter with spirits, it was terrifying. It was terrifying when I was an adult. Can you imagine when I was a kid? Or for any of you, for when you're a kid, and if a spirit, especially a scary spirits, comes to you when you're a kid, it is a traumatic experience. And you hear this with a lot of kids when they want to sleep with the lights on, or they're scared of the closet, or they're scared of the ghost or the monster that's under the bed. And we think they're making it up. What if they're not making it up? And trust me, when you get to see spirits, and you get to see some scary ones too, you'll understand that what the kids are describing is not too far from reality. It's just that we don't have the ability to see those things, but the kids do up until the age of 7. And then from there on, it's either you keep those gifts, or they decrease, or they diminish, or you completely forget them and they are shut down and you become a normal person. And that's what happened to me until a few decades later, when everything just awakened out of the blue and came back. My whole childhood was revolved around art. I loved anything that has to do with art and drawing and things that are fantastical and imaginary. I used to love animes, and I'm talking about I'm young here. I'm not like a teenager. So I'm very young. My favorite anime or cartoon was Dragon Ball. I think some of you have heard of that. There's Dragon Ball, there's Dragon Ball Z, and I used to be fascinated by any story, either in a movie or in a cartoon form, in an animated form, that was fantastical, that has fantasy, that has like elements out of the ordinary. That's stuff fascinated me. The first time I watched the Batman movie, my uncle lent me the VHS, and I was still very young. I don't remember what age I was, maybe 10 years old. And he lent me the VHS of the Batman movie from the 80s with Michael Keaton. And that movie just blew my mind. That's it. Batman became my #1 obsession and hero. And because the movie has elements that were kind of supernatural. First of all, you have the darkness, the Batmobile, where the Batman, where he lives, his cave, and everything just that seems far from reality. And I used to draw a lot. I was a good drawer. I was so good at drawing that when I was young, I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, I drew this bike. I don't even have memories of this. This is my parents telling me this. I drew this bike. It was so good. I copied it. I copied it from somewhere, from maybe a magazine, maybe. And it was so good that my father took that drawing and was showing it to his friends to show off how good I was at drawing. And this is me at like 7 or 8 years old. I was obsessed with drawing characters, creatures, animals, like the Dragon Ball characters, for example. And I'm sorry I'm digressing a little bit here, but I just want to touch on some details that are still engraved in my memory more than anything else. And I myself don't know why. I don't know why these details are just so vivid in my memory. I was one of those kids who would be drawing. Everyone is like trying to pay attention to the teacher, but I'm drawing. And I was known in the classroom that I'm a good drawer, that I'm the person who likes to draw. So that eventually evolved as I was growing up, as I was becoming a teenager. By the time I was a teenager, I used to be able to draw really well, really well. And the members of my family, such as my cousins, used to love to hang out in my room because it was just like this den of outside of reality room where you go in and you just have, back then, this is pre-internet, pre-computers, okay? I'm just telling you, before. It's just like magazines and drawings and this immaculate toys that I used to buy. I had the Batmobile toy and the Batman figurines, and my room was just like a different world. And it impressed the kids and of my age back then, and also the adults. Even when members of the family, the adults, came to see my room, they would be impressed too, because I was making my own world all the time that's outside of the world. And I did have a good amount of friends, but not a lot, because I was not the kind of person who hangs out a lot. This is, again, I'm talking about my childhood. So I was having this little bubble where I was feeling peaceful all the way till I turned 19 years old. Around 18, 19. The transition started happening 18, 19 years old. Some people call it being a nerd, but the funny thing is that you could call that definition being a nerd, but at the same time, I was also kind of the cool guy at the same time. I don't want to use terms here where I sound like I'm bragging. By all means, that's not what I mean. I'm just trying to use terms that will make you understand those situations. So fast forward, I went to college and I started making more friends because, you know, once you're in college, it's a different story and things started to change. But I still kept that environment at home for me where I was having that kind of dimension. With people, I was still the cool person. I'm aware of the trends. I hang out with the cool kids. I dated this beautiful girl. She was popular. I was also popular. And the funny thing is that I only became aware of that when I went to the West, because I was not born in the West. And English is not my first language. It's my third language. And so I grew up in a very different kind of society. So I was completely comfortable being a nerdy kind of guy, and at the same time hanging out with the cool kids and just having a social life. I was having this really cool balance, and I wasn't even aware of it again until I went abroad and lived abroad for many years and became accustomed to the Western society and the Western culture. And then I started learning about these concepts of what a nerd is, and then I'm like, oh, that never occurred to me, that you guys call this something, you call these people something. Because there came a point where I became obsessed with video games from 15 years old all the way to like 20 years old. I became obsessed with video games, and it just happened that the PlayStation, the first one, was the most popular thing back then. The PlayStation took over the world. I was obsessed with it. I used to play a lot of video games. I became obsessed with video games. So when I finished college, I wanted to study video games. And this was part of my nature. Every time I become obsessed with something and I love it, I want to know how it's made. And this still applies to the occult nowadays. And that's why I'm sharing with you the knowledge. I'm sharing with you because when I admire something and I love it, I want to know how it's done and how it's made. The same goes for magic. So when I used to draw these characters when I was young, from animations or from movies, it's because I'm always trying to get closer to the source. Drawing these characters makes me closer to the source. Because you go from just watching to now interacting, now you're drawing the character. The same thing happened with video games. And I used to play video games and I admired them so much that I wanted to study how this thing is done. How do you make a video game? So my major was business, marketing, and economics, believe it or not, the first major. That was the only thing available back then where I was from. So after I finished college, I started living by myself in a different country. So I didn't have much opportunity to explore that talent I had, which is drawing or the creative side of me. It was just like everyone was studying economics and business, and that's what I also studied. And I still managed to get my diplomas even though I didn't like it, even though I was not passionate about it. I just did it because I was told to do it. There's so much that I need to put in context because so many things were happening at the same time, so I don't want to bore you with this story. But all of this was happening simultaneously with the fact that I was obsessed with English, with the English language. I started learning English when I was 15 years old as a third language. And I was fascinated by it. The connection I had with English was instantaneous. I just loved the language right away. And I was very into the American culture, what's happening in the US, in America, more so than Europe. Even though in my environment, European culture was more prominent. And my friends, my entourage, they were more influenced. I'm talking about back then, I'm talking about the 90s. They were more influenced by the European culture, and what's happening in Europe, for me, was the US. And that's why English was a language that I adored. And I studied it, and I became so good at it as a teenager, at least the basics, that in my entourage, I was known to be the guy for English. Because back then, we didn't study English at school. I basically went to after-school classes to study English for a couple years. And my parents were not against me studying English, which was even better. Actually, my father pushed me to study English because he knew that it was going to become an international language. Back in the 90s, he knew that. I was lucky to have a father who actually knew that. So I was like, lucky me, I'm studying English. So by the time I turned 18, 19, I had a pretty good foundation compared to my friends. If anything, my friends, they didn't know any English at all. So learning English opened the door for me to the Western culture, to the American culture, to what's going on in the US. And in the 90s, the US was it. It's where it was happening. Like, name it. Pop culture, movies, music, like Hollywood, everything was from the US. In college, all of the exams for English, I used to have perfect score. And I helped so many classmates with their English, so many. And then fast forward, a couple years after that, I started living by myself in Canada, Montreal. So first I enrolled in a school to get a degree for business and economics. And as soon as I go to the first few classes, I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I need to study how to make video games because that's what I was obsessed with. So I quit that school, and it was a renowned school. When I tell a lot of people that I dropped out of that school, they get surprised because it was a pretty good school that when you graduate from it, the job is guaranteed and all of that stuff. But I'm like, no. I dropped out. Back then, my family had a mini heart attack. But I didn't care because that's just the kind of person I am. When I decide to do something, I just do it. Because I always choose to follow my heart. The same way I left my 9-to-5 corporate job, I just literally just left it. So you can see that these patterns are happening in my life quite often. They're repeating because they're actually cycles. You do what you're told to do until you decide that you're going to do what you want to do. And for you to do what you want to do, you have to drop everything. And here's the funny part. Back then, and it's still just around the time when the PlayStation 2 just came out. So we're talking about early days of video games. Not very early, not 80s early, but still, you know, around the PlayStation 2 era. When I tell my friends and family and my parents that I want to study video game design, I kid you not, they look at me like I'm out of my mind, like it's a crazy person speaking. As in, what do you mean by you want to study video games? And I tell them it's called video game design and you study how to make video games. And it just happened, talking about alignment, it just happened that in all of Canada, the best school that existed in all of Canada back then, because I was in Canada, I was not going to move to the US or somewhere else. I was already in Canada, in Montreal. I was so aligned with that path because the best school in all of Canada back then for video game design, and one of two schools only, was in Montreal. And it just happened that Montreal had one of the biggest branches of this company called Ubisoft that produces incredible video games worldwide. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm in the best city for video games and I wasn't aware of it. I was not aware that I'm in one of the best cities to study video games and to work as a video game designer even. So I enrolled in that school and surprisingly I was accepted. It was a very, very small school. It's a college. They only allow 2 classes per year. One for video game design and one for CGI for cinema. Each class has 40 students. And each year has only, again, as I mentioned, 2 classes. One for video game, one for cinema. I was in the class for video game design and I was accepted because hundreds of people apply. You have to do an interview and you have to show your skills that you can draw. You have to show a portfolio that you understand this creative side and you know how to draw and you love video games. I did the whole shebang. I prepared an amazing portfolio, I did the interview, and I was accepted. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I'm going to study how to make video game design. That was like a dream come true for me, and my professors were so badass. For example, the character animation professor, he was the one who animated the main character for the game The Prince of Persia. It's a very popular game. Some of you might know it. And I was just living in this dream world. I graduated, I finished the program, I had a blast, I graduated, I learned how video game designs are made, I still know how they're made. I learned so much and it was an amazing experience and I'm very grateful and lucky that I had the opportunity to do that. So this school I went to, as I told you, it was a college and they have just 2 classes per year. And it was a very small environment. Everyone was like a family. Everyone knew everyone. Fast forward when I transitioned my life to Japan and I started living in Japan and I started a whole chapter in Japan and more than a decade have passed. I double check and I find out that that college became a university for video game design, for 3D arts, and you can even get your master's from there. And I couldn't believe it. Just to tell you how things can grow. And many of my classmates that were studying with me ended up becoming key members for very famous video games. For example, one of my classmates became the animator in the very popular game called the Batman Arkham Knight or Arkham Asylum. I'm sorry, I'm saying these terms that many of you probably don't understand, but if you're in this field, you'll know that these games are, it's like mentioning movies that are so popular and you know the actors or you know the producers. That's why I'm mentioning them, because they were my classmates. And other classmates worked in other very popular video games. And when I went to Japan, I left that route. It was not for me anymore. Because my nature is that once I understand how something is made, I feel like I need to move on. And that's why I did not end up working in the video game industry. Even though all of my classmates became key members in big companies like Ubisoft, EA Games, I did not go that route. I chose to study something else, to research something different. And that's why I have 5 diplomas, a degree. I studied so many different things, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, which all led me to a corporate job. And when I had my corporate job, at first I was passionate about it and I loved it, and climbing the corporate ladder, trying my best, working long hours, doing my best, which gave fruition to a lot of beautiful moments of success, of abundance and whatnot. But I started becoming aware of the fact that I'm still, again, just a prisoner. I'm inside a jail and I'm not free. And I wanted to liberate myself. And this coincided with when YouTube started to become popular. When people started to make YouTube channel and YouTube is becoming a big thing. And I went from being a completely normal person, going to work, coming back, partying with friends, and going to parties, drinking, just wasting time and money in useless partying and hanging out and dating and all the things that normal people do. And I'm very sure many of you have done this, what I'm talking about. Because I wanted to liberate myself, I went from there to literally, I promised myself with discipline that I will spend every free moment I have on myself, on studying how to get out of this jail. So all the weekends and every day after my work, when I come back home, I spent it on researching the online field. I self-taught myself everything. How to shoot, the cameras, editing softwares. Like, for example, I had to teach myself editing from scratch. This is before you had easy editing softwares available like nowadays. This is back in the day where I had to teach myself Adobe Premiere. And for those of you who know Adobe Premiere, you know that it's not that easy. I self-taught myself how to use Adobe Premiere, even Adobe After Effects, even though I didn't end up using it very much. I spent all of my weekends, every day after work, just self-teaching myself. I bought courses, I did the whole 9 yards. Everything you can imagine, I did. How to start a YouTube channel, I bought the camera, how to have good lighting, how to have good audio. I spent more than 1 year having 2 lives. One life at work, at my corporate job, and the other life just learning how to build my own website. I tried everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. You want me to give you some examples? Let me give you some examples. I tried drop shipping, affiliate marketing, making money online, things that you probably have heard of. I was trying every trend that was available that can help you become independent away from the 9 to 5. I tried it and I spent so much money on that. Thousands and thousands of dollars. And people were thinking I'm crazy because when I was sharing this with my friends and my entourage, I could see in people's eyes that they thought I was crazy. No one believed me. No one believed that I could become independent from not having a 9 to 5, because all of my entourage, everyone I knew had a 9 to 5. Almost, not everyone, but almost everyone had a day job and that was their only source of income. And on the weekends, I'm like, sorry, no, I can't go to this party. Sorry, I can't go meet you. Sorry, I can't go here, I can't go there because I have to study. Study what? How to build my own thing online. I built the first website, the second website, the third website, the fourth website. The Self Alchemist website I have right now is probably the 5th website I built. Selling products online, I've tried it. I've tried anything you can imagine. I'm not the kind of person who hired, because all of that money that I had extra, I invested it in learning these things. Whereas you have a lot of people nowadays who just hire people. Like, I'm going to hire an editor. I'm going to hire someone who's going to shoot my videos. I'm going to hire someone who's going to do this for me, who's going to do that for me. For me, I did everything myself on my spare time instead of partying or wasting time and going out and doing useless things. And I didn't want to give up. I'm like, I am not going to give up until I find a way out of this. Which brings me to YouTube. Self Alchemist is probably my 5th or 6th YouTube channel. My first channel was this channel that was a failure. In this channel, I was sharing a lot of things about spirituality and New Age because back then that's what I was learning. So it was like the fluffy stuff. It had nothing to do with who I was. And I was just like following a trend because back then a lot of people shared this New Age stuff on YouTube. It worked for them, but it did not work for me. Like chakras and the third eye and all of these New Age spiritual stuff, meditation, the law of attraction. And I tried. I got my camera, I got my lightings, I invested so much money on that stuff, so much money. I even had my own corner with the couch, with my setting, and it was like even proper, not like right now where every time I show my videos, there's nothing behind me. It wasn't even like that. It was such an amazing setting. I was trying hard. You know, sometimes in my videos when I say trying hard is not good, that was the concept of trying hard. I was trying hard. I'm like, I'm gonna have the perfect thing. And then I started shooting videos and I started talking about the Hermetic principles and all of these New Age things that I was into, I was passionate about, but it was a complete disaster. No one watched, no views, nothing. Nothing was happening, nothing. For a few years. Let me be honest with you, I had better equipment than right now. Because right now, I'm more of a nomad and I travel a lot, so I have to have the bare minimum. Back then, I had better equipment for my videos. And it didn't work. Why? Because it was not the right time for that thing to work. And I didn't know who I was. I was still just trying to figure out who I was. So it wasn't the right time for me to flourish yet, even though I was trying everything. So that channel eventually didn't work. And when I say YouTube, I was having YouTube and Instagram as well. I was having all the social media stuff that was available back then. I remember I used to post on Instagram 3 times per day. I'm talking about early 2010s. Early 2010s, okay? When Instagram just came out, I jumped on it right away and I was posting 3 times per day. All sorts of things. Whatever inspired me, inspirations and like quotes back in the day, Instagram. You remember when quotes were popular on Instagram a long time ago? When Instagram just had photos, no videos, no stories, nothing like that. And I was trying to share all of these spiritual concepts and everything I was learning, I was trying to share it. But again, nothing worked because I was still unveiling myself to myself. And I remember that's when I went to this psychic medium. And she told me something that stayed with me for a while and it was very helpful. She told me, has it ever occurred to you that what you're learning right now is for yourself and it's not to share with people? There's gonna come the right time when you're gonna be ready to share these things. But for right now, it's only for you. And that was an important message because I wasn't aware of it. Everything I was learning back then, I was learning it for myself, not to share. And that's why nothing worked. That's why sometimes people try so hard and things don't work because they're not ready yet. Similarly, so when I share this stuff with you, I know what I'm talking about because I'm speaking from experience. So that channel didn't work. And then I started another channel, which was Sacred Geometry channel. That I still have. I posted a few videos there and that kind of picked up. It worked because I was so obsessed with sacred geometry. I learned everything I wanted to know about sacred geometry and I wanted to share it with everyone because it was literally my passion. The flower of life, Metatrons cube, the seed of life, the fruit of life, the egg of life, the platonic solids, the triskelion or triquetra, all of these shapes that were just incredible to me. And I learned everything I wanted to learn and I shared it on that channel. But then again, it was a phase where it was done. I was done with that. That's why I'm telling you, there's gonna come a time when maybe what I'm doing right now is gonna also be done, because my life since I was young was like this. It's like chapters. They start and then there comes an end, and then another chapter, and then another chapter. I don't do one thing and stay with it my whole life. It's never been like that, and I know it's never gonna be forever. There's a chance, maybe I'm gonna keep doing this for life, maybe, but there's a high chance that it's not gonna be for life. So the sacred geometry thing was one phase. I did it and I was done with it. And right now the channel is there. It's in the link in the description and you can go check it out. And then I had another channel as well where I was reviewing products, because the field of my 9 to 5, my corporate job, was related to that. It was related to products and industrial design and product design, and but still within creation. How do you create a product? So I started a YouTube channel where I review products, things that millions of people are doing nowadays, and I did it quite early, and it worked. I posted just 2 videos and they blew up. They actually had so many views for a new channel. So imagine just a brand new channel, and I post 2 videos. Each video had a review of a specific product. I had so many views. I was shocked. And again, that was the sign that I was supposed to do that. That could have become so successful, that channel. And I see channels who are doing the same thing nowadays, who started way later, years later, and they have built empires from reviewing the product. So I always have the tendency to jump on these trends that are way ahead of time. And I'm not bragging here again. I'm telling you this because even when I was at university, even at school, even my professors used to tell me this. I've been always told this phrase, Seth, you're always ahead of time. You always pick on these things that are ahead of time. And many years pass, then they become popular. So when I started this channel to review products, and the theme was like design products, because it was related to what I was doing in my 9 to 5, just design beautiful, immaculate products. So this became a trend later on, and channels with millions of subscribers came after that. But you're gonna ask me, so why didn't you continue doing that? If you had traction, why didn't you do that? The answer is because it was not my path. It was not for me. It was not spirituality. It was not the occult. And after that second video, I had this vision of the future. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do with this channel? I imagine myself having 1 million subscribers or 2 million subscribers on YouTube on that channel, having hundreds of videos reviewing products, and I'm like, so what? I'm still not fulfilled. That's not gonna give me anything other than money. That's it. Just money. There's zero fulfillment. It's not my path. It's not who I am. It's not who I want to become. I don't want to become someone who reviews products. Even though it was my passion and it was related to what I was doing, it was like a career, if you will, but it didn't represent who I was or what I wanted to become. Because that path is empty. It only has money. So I literally just dropped it. Even the person I was with back then, she was surprised. She was shocked. Because when I decide that this is not for me and it's empty and it doesn't have fulfillment, it doesn't represent who I am, I don't care how much money it's gonna bring. I'm gonna leave it behind. The same way how I left my 9 to 5. That was bringing me so much money. If I stayed in that 9 to 5, by now I would be making way more money than what I'm making right now doing what I'm doing for you. Yes, it's a sacrifice. If I have stayed in my 9 to 5, or if I kept doing that YouTube channel, I could have been much wealthier than now. Much wealthier. You're shocked. You're probably surprised. So when I tell you there are sacrifices to be done, and that this path means so much for me that I had to sacrifice my wealth for it, you know that I'm serious. I'm not joking around. And it really, really bothers me when I see people doing what I'm doing for money. It really, it frustrates me a lot, because the amount of sacrifices I had to do to have this for you, to find out who I am and to hopefully inspire you to find out who you are, the amount of sacrifices I have done, and yet I see other people doing it just to make money. I start losing respect for these people. So that channel for reviewing products was one channel, and I started another channel. So literally, Alchemist it's either the 5th or the 6th YouTube channel. The 5th or the 6th. And even with Alchemist, now I've been doing it for almost 5 years. In the beginning, barely anyone was watching, and I kept doing it. And if you think that YouTube pays me money, I wish I could share with you how much. You would be surprised. You would be shocked of how little it is. If you do this thinking that YouTube is gonna pay you money, I'm just telling you from the get-go, don't do it. Maybe in other fields, YouTube pay a lot of money. Maybe if you do finance or technology, maybe YouTube pay a lot of money. But for other fields, no. It's something that you just have to do for years and years, non-stop. You want to share something you believe in, something that you're passionate about, something that represents who you are. The same thing for TikTok. I opened an account in 2021 and I grew it to 65,000 followers just to see it banned. And even when I started on TikTok, I was one of the first few, if not the first male tarot reader on TikTok in 2021. Ina, which started her account prior to me, and a couple months later I started my account. I remember we started around the same year. And to grow that account to such a number and to see it banned and to not see any financial money from it, it's a little bit disappointing. I didn't see a dime from that TikTok account, even though I heard that TikTok pays a lot of money to the creators, but for me, it wasn't the case, because the region where I opened the TikTok account back in 2021, it was in Asia, and TikTok only pays you in certain countries. But again, it helped with exposure and it served its purpose. And it's not there anymore. It was banned. The universe allowed it to be banned. It's okay. If the universe allows something, it's for a reason. With Ina, which had it worse. 3 of her TikTok accounts were banned. 3, not 1. And for each account, she grew them to hundreds of thousands of followers. This kind of social media or these platforms, I don't see any money for them. But it's good for exposure. It's good to connect with other people. It's good to share your gift with the world. That's true. But if you do it expecting money, I'm here to tell you, just stay at your 9 to 5. It will give you more money. So I'm just telling you, if you think this is going to make you money, just leave it, because there's no money here. And don't get me started on the hate comments. If I were to show you the hate comments I get sometimes, you would be shocked, you would be surprised. Of course, I get a lot of loving comments from you guys. You guys are wonderful, and I appreciate your beautiful comments. I'm flattered. You guys are wonderful. You're loving, and I truly appreciate it. But on the other side, you should see the hate comments, yin and yang. The kind of negative comments and insults that people write are just, I wonder how people can write such things. They just insult you for no reason. They insult you because you're doing what you're doing. They don't like it, so they insult you. They don't even talk about it or discuss it. They just insult you right away. I don't understand it myself. So this is not for the faint of heart. And it's not an easy path. And maybe your path is different. I'm just sharing my perspective and what I have been through. Maybe your path is different. Maybe you're going to experience something completely different. Maybe you're going to start YouTube and within 1 month, you're going to have all the wealth in the world. I don't know. I'm just sharing with you what I have been through. And I know we all have different paths. We're all different. Everyone is going to have a different path that they need to walk on. But I'm just sharing with you the sacrifices I had to make to do what I'm doing right now because of two things. This path is allowing me to know who I am, Alchemist, and it is giving me freedom. Two things. These two things cannot be bought with any kind of money or any kind of wealth. You know who you are and you have your freedom. Okay? So I hope what I shared with you can help you in any shape or form along your journey, and hopefully it has given you perspective about what it is required to become who you are. Again, as I have mentioned, you have your own path and you're going to have your own experiences that maybe have nothing to do with what I shared, but I just was guided to share this with you. It might inspire you along your transformational journey as well. So just remember that this is a long journey and you do it not for the money, you do it for yourself, to become who you are, to share your gift with the world, to help yourself, and hopefully so you can help other people as well. That's the only reason why you choose this path. This is what I have. I just shared with you the gist. I didn't even go into the details of my journey. Otherwise, if I were to share everything, I need many days or I need to write a book about it. Let me know in the comment section about your journey. If you're trying to also break free from the system and become who you are and build your own thing, let me know what you're going through, because I know this is not an easy path. Maybe for some people it's easy because there's karmic retribution connected to this. So maybe some people can build their path much easier than others. Your path does not have to be like mine. I just shared mine with you so you can have an idea or a perspective about what I've been through. So share that with me in the comment section. I would love to read it. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.